Hello, everyone. Welcome to Business Dun Rite. Brendan here, Community Manager for Dun Rite Games, and joined, of course, by our two founders, Jake, our lead game designer, and Ricardo, our CEO. Now, this is our first episode. Really excited. How are you guys going today?
Very good. How are you, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, definitely. So as I said, this is our first episode of Business Dun Rite. Now, we haven't done this before, of course. So if possible, Barto and Jake, if you want as well, just touch on a little bit what this Business Dun Rite series or podcast, if you will, is going to be about.
Yeah, I'll jump in first, and then I'll let Ricardo go because he's probably got more to say. To me, it's just a way of us sort of letting people that are interested, that want to watch and see where our mindsets have come from and where we're going, and why we think the way we do. Sort of looking into games that are out there, or games we want to make, or how we want to run the business. But it's just a way to show you sort of where we're coming from, where we're going, and why.
Yeah, so the main idea was that most of the videos on YouTube are about a certain game, but we wanted to make a video series about the company, about the reasons why we do things the way we do them, why we got to that mentality, how do we analyze other games and the businesses around that, and how do we need to structure our own framework for the company so that we can achieve what we want to achieve. So there's a lot of scattered information out there that I feel that me and Jay have gone through that motion of learning, discussing, debating. And I feel that this would be helpful for other founders, especially in the gaming industry, but we'll bring other topics as well that are not related to gaming, that are related to startups or general companies. So we'll be discussing those as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And obviously today we're just getting started into it. So today we're a bit of an introduction, I guess, into monetization in gaming and sort of the history of it, and then what's really popular and prevalent in mobile today. So obviously starting with the history of mobile gaming, you have, purchasing the hard copies outright. And Jake, do you want to take us off from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably everyone watching this video, I know all three of us are lifelong gamers in that middle-aged category, to where we were the first generation to really, grow up playing video games. And this is something that Ricardo and I have talked about. And I think if you watch back on some of the old videos when we were talking about, before we ever really got started, about philosophy of it, it's something that I want to recreate, because I can remember when I was a kid, this is way before the internet, all that stuff. Just going to, you had the $50, you had it, you got it for your birthday or whatever. And you're walking in the store to pick out a game you want to play. It was like, there was no begrudging, oh man, I got to give him my $50. I couldn't wait to give him my $50 and get that experience. And I think that's something that is missing in games today, is that it's always like a slick way, or an underhanded way, or just, hey, give us, you're going to have to pay to play, or pay to win, that we are very much against. And I want to get back to that feeling that you got when you was a kid and you get that $50 and you got that awesome experience. I think it can be done in a free-to-play model. I just don't think it has been done very well in most cases. So that physical walking in the store, you buy the cartridge, as we got older, you buy the CD or whatever it might be, and going home and getting that was sort of how it all started. That was the only way to make money. That's the only way. Of course, we're not going back to like arcade games, but at home, that was the way that companies profited, is how many copies can you sell. And then obviously, as the internet came along and you went online, you could start, it opened the world up to a whole different thing. A person could buy a game sitting at their house. They don't have to get in the car. They don't have to go down to GameStop or wherever it might be. So that just changed everything, obviously. And Steam was obviously the first one to jump in on that and really get it right and make it, secure and safe. And you had customer service. You had all the things that go along with that, to where when you got something, you had some security. You weren't going to get scammed with your money or whatever like that. You had the actual key to the proper game. And then there's a lot of games that started off in that early time frame. And when I can remember back, I've talked about it a lot. I was an EQ2 player, for the better part of a decade. And that was sort of that first online, the MMOs, the big communities that sort of the internet made possible. WoW is obviously the king of that. We were anti-WoW, we were EQ2. But, it changed everything that the internet did just in its own sense, and not get into monetization yet, but just changed the way that we received essentially the same thing, which was an experience. You paid for the game, you got your experience. But I won't dominate here. I'll let Ricardo jump in and talk a little bit about his experience on that as well.
Yeah, well, obviously, even though the laws and the way games are sold, because even when you bought a cartridge or a CD, you basically bought a license to use it. You didn't own it. Now it was just a digital key that you basically purchased or licensed to use for those online games. For the most part, the mentality of that is still there today. Companies don't want to change that because it's been working on for decades. And it's hard for them to fathom a different environment where maybe community-led ownership of things, basically the new ecosystems with blockchain, those are hard to combine now, even though we know that that's the way it's going, the market is going. But coming back to the online, that allows for subscription monetization, which is basically WoW, Xbox Live, Sony Live, and now lately Stadia now, yeah, with Google, Apple Arcade. So those are the subscription models, but they're a little bit different. So either it's a massive game, or you have a library of things to access. So I don't particularly like either one. I would like a little bit more variety, and that's something that we have thought about and discussed extensively. But then WoW enabled, or games like WoW or EQ2 enabled black markets in games, which should ring some bells for companies, because player-to-player markets are massive. WoW player-to-player market in 2009 was $2 billion. And that's huge. No shabby money for anyone. So that's something that companies need to be aware now.
Well, and to jump in and point out,
that will happen. Yeah. And for the most part, eBay is still the.
Sorry, I'm going to get the lag. We're stepping over each other. But those companies don't get any of that money either. It's not like they, that's $2 billion that they don't see a penny of. It's just player to player. They're not dipping their toes in the water. They're not facilitating it. They're not making it safe. They're not doing anything. It's just happening because the players want it.
Yeah, but even now, I've seen teammates of mine and people we know that we discussed that buy $300 account for a mobile game, and they want to do that. But historically speaking, for every successful, legitimate sale, there's hundreds of failed purchases and scams worldwide. And we want to change that as well. But companies don't want to, because obviously they're making billions of dollars right now. So why would they change? But that's something definitely we need to look at. So now that's, we've talked about upfront cost, you buy the $50, $60, whatever that cost. We've talked about subscription. Block market is not really accessible for companies, but that's a player-to-player market anyway. Now we're going to jump into mobile and how it started. So mobile monetization really started with the Apple App Store and the iPhone 3G. I mean, that was like the first time people could actually buy a game that would be worth buying. You could buy something before for other games, but that was not really worth anything. And the iPhone really kicked this to for everyone. And then obviously Google jumped on the bandwagon. Microsoft tried to do that. Nokia tried to do that. But in the end, Apple is still king. Google is the second one in terms of money made. But before the in-app purchases, the same mentality still persisted on mobile.
Yeah.
Basically, companies made an app and they sold it for $5, $7, $15, and that was your game. You had it. That was that. So they needed to, because it was mobile, there's a different context for people. So when you buy a console or a PC, you sit down in front of your TV or your monitor and you have time, and the expectations of what the game should be are vastly different than when you buy a mobile game and you're just playing it for 5 minutes because you're waiting on the bus or you're in the loop. So the way you approach the market is very different. So you cannot expect someone to just pony up $60 for a mobile game. And before in-app purchases, they used to do a light version of a game that gave you 3 levels and 5 lives, and then you run out, and then you just need to buy it, a different app. So people, I bought Bejeweled back then, which was the main three player puzzle
Classic.
game, and it was fantastic. But then Apple came in with in-app purchases, and then Ting came along with Candy Crush, and Zynga came along as well, and that really just made a whole different economy around games with in-app purchases. So what we call now microtransactions, which everyone's familiar with. So those are the things that companies and game designers need to think about now. It's like how to engage that audience in it. And there's another monetization strategy that Jake can talk about, which is ads and how they're used well or not.
Yeah, and when I first, my opinion on it has sort of changed, and it's because of the games that I've played that have done it well. And I'm sure you guys, Spackman, I know that you talked a little bit about this last time we were just on the phone chatting, that you're some games you're playing that sort of do it that way, and we're all sort of like, yeah, that's I'm okay with. We hate when a game forces it down your throat. The ad pops up. There's nothing you can do. You have to watch it. It interrupts your gameplay. It's all that stuff. But there's a few games that have done it where it gives you something. You have a choice. You want to watch this ad and double your coins or double your reward for the level you just beat or whatever. Here you go. You don't have to, but we seem to all be in agreement that when we have that choice, when it gives us something in game and says, hey, help us out, we'll help you out, we all sort of click on it. We'll watch the 30-second ad and double up our reward. I can't think of off the top of my head. One of them's like this Golf Clash that I've been playing. It's a little silly golf game, but it's the same thing. You can watch it out if you want to. Now they screwed it up because very quickly in the game you sort of outpace the reward that you're getting for the ad. But there's others that whatever your reward is, it doubles. And Spackman, I think you had one that you had been played recently. What was it that you said you liked the way they had done it?
I've been running through a few. I'm on basically an idle game rabbit hole at the moment. What was it? There's a prison game that's doing really well in the App Store right now. I forget which one it is, but it's basically you run a prison tycoon. It's that sort of a game, and there's so many like it that I'm just I don't know. They're addictive, but again, as you said, you're choosing when to watch the ads. They're not forcing it on you, which is a breath of fresh air for me. I get rid of those games that I have to. I'm forced.
Yeah, it changes the way you look at it. All of a sudden, it's like this. It's a deal, right? It's not like here's what you get. Shut up and take it. There's a give and take, and I don't know. For me, at least, it's like I don't mind it sometimes. So, I won't always click on it, but if I do, it's my choice. I've got the 30 seconds to burn. I get something extra. So that's something that we definitely would consider in games, depending on if it fit the game or fit the situation. But it would be very much that type of ad. Hey, do you want to? You get a little extra. You watch the ad, we make a little extra money. So that's the only way, at least at Dun Rite, that we would ever consider it. There'll never be a game where it's like, boom, here's your ad, take it.
I think it has an element of empowering the player, which I think resonates with a lot of people about it, because, as you said, they have the choice, they have the control in a way, which I think psychologically works.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think that companies need to be wiser at designing the game mechanics and how they introduce the monetization strategies in their games, because lines are getting very blurry right now. I mean, I have iPad Pro, and that's an insane machine. And I can plug it with a controller, I can plug it into my TV and then just get going. I don't need a console anymore. But then Nintendo is blurring the lines by having the Nintendo Switch be a mobile device. So is it a mobile device? Is it a game console? Because it can be both. I mean, basically, you can plug it into your TV and have the controller wirelessly, or you can just pick it up from the base, put the controls there, and go on your merry way on the airplane, on the bus, on the car, wherever. So lines are getting blurry, and then once companies like Stadia or systems like Stadia really kick off with awesome games that you can play basically on your mobile and then pause it, move to PC, and then have a bigger screen. Same game, same system. That will really trigger people into, what should I expect from my game, and how much money am I willing to spend on it?
Right, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier. If I buy a mobile app, or if I get a free-to-play mobile app, but let's say I paid 99 cents for it, all of a sudden the ad seems reasonable. However, if I spend $60 on a console game or a PC game, I don't want to see an ad in that. I already gave you $60, right? So it's a different mindset depending on what it is. And as those lines get blurred, it's like, where do ads fall in that? I don't, that's something we're going to figure out.
Yeah, and these are the things that that some companies have made it right. They give you all the free stuff if you buy the $60, or you need to earn it and buy it little by little. But when you start combining both, that's when it gets a little bit tricky. EA got into a murky situation because of a game like that. You pay $60 and then you needed to do like 2,000 hours worth of work to get what you wanted for free, which no one wanted to spend 2,000 hours on the game just to get one character, which was the main ones. So you start.
Great.
Yeah. So then you start really that's when the game designer really needs to think about which successful monetization strategy I'm going to use for my game, and how am I going to introduce that with my game mechanic. Because if my game mechanic is broken because I want to charge some money, then the user will feel like, well, this is not working for me. So, exactly. But if it's very subtle, if it gives you value, you have way more chances of getting that spent. So, that's something that me and Jake, the main game designers, have debated a lot about. So, for example, if you're playing a battle royale and the company does the convenience strategy, it gives you 5 times that you can play, but the battle royale game lasts half an hour.
Yeah.
Well, the player will play for 2.5 hours if it has 5 lives or 5 chances, and then simply stop playing because it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. But which battle royales have started to do is like give unlimited gameplay and then sell customization, sell skins. And Fortnite and PUBG and Apex Legends and all of those battle royales are widely successful because they give that opportunity for the player to customize and change the way they look within the game. Still a free game. Warzone now, so still very much a free game, but you can customize the way you want it, and people like that.
Well, and that sort of leads us into what we're I guess the last topic that we're going to get on, which is the different types of monetization. I think I'm doing Spackman's job here, but it's all right. But what and I want your response to this, Spackman, because I don't know. Again, we've talked a lot on the phone just before all this over the last few weeks. To me, when I was talking to an investor one time, it was like, it really made sense to him. We were talking about this sort of type stuff, and I was like, you have to give it in today's world, at least in my opinion, not talking about like a Red Dead Redemption that you spent $300 million on. It's amazing. And you can say, okay, give me your $60 and I'll give you the whole experience. That's different. But for games like mobile and smaller, even battle royale type games, to me, the standard now, what you have to do to have an ultra successful game, I'm not talking about just some success. There's lots of success, right? Lots of different variations. But to have an ultra successful game, you have to give them for free, which sounds crazy, an amazing experience. I can name lots of examples, but here's a great experience. And then later, as Ricardo said, you blend it in, you introduce it in, whether it be through skins or other options, and say, now I can make it even better. Give me a little money, and I'll make it even cooler. I'll let you customize. I'll let you do all these things, and people are willing to. I'm willing to. I think you guys probably would agree.
Yeah, so you give them the game, and then you give them more game for money.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, for example, if we go back to the terms of successes that you mentioned, so there's a few games that I personally love that are amazing games, like Inside, Limbo, Odyssey, and Adventure. Those are games that you buy for $5, but they end. There's an end to that, so I cannot enjoy them for forever. Monument Valley, I love that game, both versions, number 1 and 2, and they're fantastic games, but they're $5, and the company just gives you the $5 worth, and that's it. And now that plays to my head, like, why did this company make the game in such a way that it had an ending? Why can't it give you a little taste and then make more money? Because I mean, these companies are successful, making tens, even maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. But the companies that give it for free and give you a great experience, they're making billions of dollars.
Exactly. That's my point. There's a whole different life. There's a whole different world between these companies that are making tens, 50, even $100 million, which is nothing to sneeze at. That is successful. Okay. But there's the companies that are making billions, it's a recurring theme. It's not pay to win. It's free. It's a great game. And then they charge you for extras. It's the same thing over and over. You know, it's like, to me, some people look at it as like, oh, well, why are these games successful? It's the same recurring underlying setup. You know, it's like you make a great game, you give it to them, you get your claws in them, you get them hooked, they love it, and all they want is more. Just like the example you were giving, Ricardo, you would gladly shell out $10-15 if they would come out with more levels for those games, or another. You would jump all over it. You know, they've got you, but they put it. They said they designed it in a way where it ends. One, which is a bad idea. Why not say, okay, you know, cliffhanger ending and to be continued. We're going to have more coming out. It makes no sense. Then you get into the billions.
I think that the unicorns is what, Ricardo, you mentioned. They're called, I guess, the companies that do that so well and are those, you know, billion-dollar companies. I think that's what we'll be looking at, you know, in the future episode or episodes in particular. Some really, you know, key examples that we can drill down into why this particular, you know, strategy or methodology in the game's design and functionality and marketing or whatever has been so successful compared to other ones that are so similar and yet have not seen that same similar success, which obviously we don't have time for today. And but part of me wonders if we've covered most of the chat for today or not. I don't know if you guys, if there was still more on that you wanted to touch on or not.
No, I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job of going over sort of just, again, this is introductory, right? This is one of many videos that we'll do, and just sort of starting into sort of the history of the way this stuff came about, and then sort of where our mindset is at. And when we look at a game, it's like, and like I said, we'll talk about this in future episodes, but why? What's the difference? You've got how many puzzle 3 matching games, right? And some of them have made billions, and some of them have made millions. Like, what's the difference? What they're essentially the exact same game. But so I think that'll be interesting to look into going forward. But, you know, we've said it a million times, and Ricardo, he'll probably say it again. There's literally nothing and maybe we're just OCD, I don't know. For hours we sit down and we talk about every little thing that goes into a game. Why? Why have they done it this way? Why does everyone copy it this way? Is that a good thing? Or is it a bad thing? Did they just nail it, or are they just copying because they don't have any, you know, innovative ideas? And monetization is obviously, especially when you're starting a business, way up there on that, because investors want to know. You know, they want to know how are we going to make money, and why do you think it's going to work?
Yeah, and obviously, you know, We want to compare flops to, it's hard to say mildly successful games to actually hyper successful games. And it's the same genre, but vastly different results. And we'll try to dive into the differences in the mechanics, how they approach that monetization, what value you get for your time invested, because that's essentially what you're giving to the company. And obviously the feedback the company gets by you using the game and how they read that information, which is amazing intelligence. Some companies change all the time, and I've seen that over the years, how they keep on improving their monetization strategies, the value they give. But having said that, if you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever you're watching it, if you like a topic to be covered here and discussed and how we approach things, please comment below or send us a message. Brendan or Spagman will compile that list, and we'll touch on all of them if we can.
Yeah, definitely reach out. We'll have some contact details as well if you want to be, if you're in the industry and you want to reach out independently for anything. We're very open, love talking about this with anyone. The previous chat we had about this sort of went for far longer than this video, and we could keep going, but that's not a digestible video or anything for anyone. But yeah, do engage, discuss. It's very, very open. We're not here with the answers, but we're trying to open the discussion for everyone to be involved in. But we might leave that for today, I think. So thank you, everyone, and stick around for future episodes of Business Done Right. Cheers.